Welcome to Business and Investing with Grant and Charlie, where we are enhancing your complete set of skills to build wealth inside and outside your business. It's funny, even face-to-face, Charlie, I have to do the actions, and I'm sure it looks hella weird.
I was just going to say, you are much more comfortable doing this the second time than the first. So for anyone that hasn't, I would highly encourage you to listen to the first episode, part 1 of this episode on spending your time away from your business, where you'll see Grant's intro is a little bit more awkward. We've got way more comfortable with me now.
I like it. It's like, have you ever gone to like marriage counseling or like relationship counseling where they get you to look into each other's eyes and it's like so uncomfortable at the start and then you feel comfortable? It was that. Just put it out there.
I haven't had that experience, but I can imagine it would be intense.
Totally. And for anyone who's listening to this, if you do want to subscribe to the newsletter, head over to businessandinvesting.com/newsletter. Put in your name and email, and we'll notify you every single time we drop one of these episodes. Now, before we get started, Charlie, let's cue your disclaimer.
It's Charlie here from Business and Investing, and I need to let you know that Grant, myself, and the Business and Investing team are in no way, shape, or form qualified to give you personal or specific financial advice. We strongly encourage you seek out and use professionals when you are making investment decisions or comparing investment products. Like when you know you've got one of these weekends coming up, what do you do before? What do you do during? What do you do after?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. The very first thing that I find, that I've personally found confronting, but I think a lot of people that I talk to find confronting as well, is actually booking the darn thing in. So even before all that prep, it's like, just how often do you do it? And so I really like the idea of cadences, right? So if you're sitting there going, I just don't have time, everything's burning around me and stuff like that, just do some kind of basic cadence, like maybe once a quarter, maybe you go away for 4 nights or 4 days or something like that, or maybe once a month you get away for a night or something. Like just try and get it into some kind of cadence, which is why I asked you the question around like the trigger points, because I'm like, wow, it's a very mature person. It's like, oh, my business is stagnant. I need to get away, because most people are like, oh, my business is stagnant. I need to do more. I'm going to do more of the thing. And so I'm like, well, just cadences is, in my recommendation, the best way that I've got to continue doing the thing. Then book it out weeks in advance. And you go, why do you need to book it out weeks in advance? Because what will end up happening is you actually prep for it. So for example, us preparing for this weekend away, then I got a document that's full of questions.
It's so funny. We do the same thing.
So literally I've spent thinking time, and like literally my thinking time is, how do Charlie and Grant make the best out of this weekend? What questions do I need answered in this weekend? What have I not been thinking about? How do I get to X? And let's just use all these thinking times to come up with questions with no answers. Just maybe I'll throw down some random thoughts, and then we'll just cover loosely.
Are some of yours just like statements?
So I've looked back and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know it's just like I've written a word. It's not even a complete sentence.
But it's funny, like one of my questions, I had 10 bullet points basically trying to answer the thing. And I'm just like, cool, my brain was just at that point. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, I'm not actively trying to solve something and planning for it. I'm just getting everything in my head to go, without limitation, what do I want to think? And whilst we're here, I will continue to add to that list.
Do you know what's interesting? When you make the list before you go away, so like I've been doing this for about a couple of weeks now, is like actually like I have a part of my Apple Notes where it's like things to discuss while away. As you put them down, you start percolating on them in the time in the lead up.
Totally. Yeah. Dude, it's such a powerful moment, because like when you sit there making a coffee 2 days after you wrote this note, you're like, oh yeah. Or like you'd be listening to a podcast and someone would say something, you're like, oh, that kind of relates to that question that I put down. But
if I was actually going to ask you what podcasts and content you're consuming at the moment, that was on my list.
See, I'll just sit there and I'll just like pick over your shoulder when you're reading in the morning. I'm like, oh, what's he reading?
All right, so doing some preparation for it. Do you follow something like Keith Cunningham's thinking time process, or use that in the lead up, where you're looking for the key things, you're putting that in a list, and then you're bringing that with you?
Totally. It's funny. I still think I'm on the journey of thinking time, of trying to perfect it, right? Actually, you know what? I doubt that anyone really perfects thinking time.
Hey, make it your own, right?
Totally.
It's like cooking. It's like, as long as the meal is edible, you cook.
As long as you can eat it.
No one died. Although, I'll tell you right, if someone cooks and everyone gets food poisoning, did they cook?
They
still did the activity. It didn't lead to a good outcome,
Well, so it's like when business owners, they opened a business and it didn't work, they're still business owners.
Yes,
That's
they were. So the point being is that obviously outputs matter and help.
totally.
But thinking time is one of those, like, it's ambiguous. I don't think there is a perfect thinking time. And I think it's so individualized that it's like you want to shape it in yourself. What works for you may not work for me, or vice versa.
Totally. And so one of the challenges that I've faced with thinking time is not asking a very good question. Because I've always looked at the time that I've asked this amazing question that I wanted to print and frame on the wall and just go, that was like the greatest. I've always had the best outcomes. And so what I've actually found is that I had to do multiple thinking times on this kind of the same topic. It's like, what do I want to get away from this weekend? And I have 5 different questions that basically allude to the same thing, but then they'll all have completely different bullet points. And I'm like, it's just how you frame the question. It's how you think about the question. And that's why I'm like, I'm just not that great yet at thinking time, where I'm just like, this is the perfect question to ask that will actually solve the problem. So what I do is when I look at something like a weekend getaway, I'm like, I know I'm going to have like 5 thinking times on this in order to expand on it. And then I'll hit some point and I'm like, that's a trash question. I need to expand on that. I need to at least think about it myself more before I go and talk to Charlie about it. And so, so coming up to it, I utilize thinking time like 5-6 times just to try and get to a good point. And then I'll kind of collate them. There'll be duplicates, remove them all out. And I'm like, cool, now I think I'm ready to go.
I always try not to put too much pressure on myself to solve everything.
No, I put immense pressure on myself.
I was feeling that a little bit. But in the idea that you do this prep and you put all these questions down, I think one of the potential mistakes, and when I say potential, this is what I did, is thinking that if I write down 5 things, that I'm going to solve all 5.
I completely.
Where it's like you might solve one, but you actually might come up with a new one while you're there and make the other ones void.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can't almost treat it transactionally in that way.
It's not a to-do list. It's not a to-do list at all. Like you're not, and the reason it's not a to-do list is because you're not trying to execute on it where you just need to come out with the end with those things solved. It is more just a process of thinking and decompressing and just going, great, like where does it land?
Well, it shuts down the idea of new, right?
Totally.
If you come with 5 things and you're only going to solve those things, then what if you see something while you're here, or you have a conversation, or something pops up that is of potentially higher value? So the open-mindedness to that I found incredibly helpful in that. Just on prep, before we talk about the idea of what we do when we are here, when you're doing prep, do you find that there's an excitement and mood that comes in the lead up? Like, I think I've sent you like 20 pings across the last week and a half about like having a countdown. Like, my level of enjoyment and excitement in life goes up in the lead up as well. And I would even say I perform better in the other areas of life in the lead up as well. It's got like this pre-burner effect.
Totally. My wife has turned to me and Hazel has said, Grant, if you mention this weekend one more time, there are divorce papers.
She's just jealous. She's just jealous.
She's like, and I'm sitting there like, why else am I going to say? I'm like, if I ping Charlie about this all the time, he's going to think I'm fucking weird.
I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, of course you do. I'm like, totally. So short answer, yes. Like my wife, I'm like, but it's actually been really interesting because Hazel's actually really excited for me on how excited I am. And she knows that these weekends we get so much out of it and that we actually come back and perform better. And I like to argue, I'll probably become a better husband when I come back. Like,
so that's the afterburner. So the pre-burner is the excitement in the lead up to it, which I think we're happier for the weeks in leading up. We perform better in the other areas of life because of it.
Totally.
But then the afterburner is also true.
Everything around us.
Yeah, you're well rested. You've put some intention. You've got ideally some clarity around things. So it's like when you come home and you're in that zone, brain's a little bit deloaded.
Yep.
I think there's truth in that as well. I think it serves past the weekend itself in a big way.
I concur. I'm curious. So funnily enough, there was this weekend away, there is like one thing I'm trying to solve. And I would love it if we could at least kind of cover most of it, majority, but not even solve it. And so my question to you is like, do you routinely go through and prioritize your list leading up to the weekend to go, if there's just one question that we could get to ask across 4 days, this is the question I would like to ask? Or do you just have it as an unorganized list and just go, whatever organically pops up is what we'll cover?
Do you know, I've actually become more loosey-goosey.
Really?
Yeah, I used to be more structured in that type of thing, but I found it's like a dampener on creativity. I almost feel like there's an artistic nature to it. Like even in doing this podcast, right? Yeah, sure, we prep and you know what? People can probably see what's on the screens if they're on the video.
It's like one line bullet points.
Yeah, but you have to allow it to go where it's going to go because if it's like scripted and rigid, it's like in this episode so far, how many things would not have gotten said?
Oh, totally.
Because we prepped. I already know like half of this episode isn't in the prep.
Totally.
But it's just where the flow of things has gone. Is there intention around where I would like it to go? Yes. But again, I just think that in creativity or creative aspects like this, there has to be room for brainstorming. There has to be room for it.
Totally.
Are there outcomes I'd like? Yes. But do you know what? I'll go on another weekend if I need to.
Totally. Did you feel the pressure to ask good questions or have a good list?
Yes, that I do. I must say is, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit in here as well, but it's like the idea of being underprepared for a weekend away feels wasteful.
I totally.
Like I want to be over prepped. So, and this comes down to like, I think anyone who knows us, like I used to think I was OCD and like you take it to a whole nother level. But between us, it's the most OCD weekend ever to a degree.
Anyone would watch this and just go, you guys are weird.
Yeah, you are weird. But I would rather have too much on that list and in that prep and not finish things than come underprepared and feel like I spend the first day of this trying to get like into that, because the feeling of behind is a dampener on it.
Totally.
Where it's like it's being excited for it because I am overprepared, but then also happy if I don't get through it. Like I don't need to get through it. But I think that might even be a mindset thing.
Yes. Totally. As opposed to just a getaway thing.
Well, I'll throw another layer on this though, because I think there's something else in this where we've spoken about, and we've kind of hinted that we're doing golf as well as the more serious planning stuff or the business outcomes.
We kind of just swing sticks. Like I feel like golf is like a little bit too much.
You would even put it into that label. How funny. I sincerely believe when it comes to doing these types of weekends away, there has to be some fun and joy in it itself.
Totally.
Where if it's all just too serious and you're not having something to do with it. So if you're going away with a group of guys, maybe it's a nice dinner out and like playing cards, right?
Yeah.
Some fun experiences. Or you and I watched a ridiculous movie last night.
No way, hang on. Watched is exactly. We stopped it.
Yeah,
went to bed.
How are we running on time? We're doing all right for time as well, Grant. But I think injecting those types of experiences in it are like setting the right moods and tones and things as well, right? So in the preparation for this, when we pick a location, it's like we want the ability to incorporate that.
Yeah.
Where it's not like we intend to spend we're literally going to sit at this table for 4 days.
And just look at each other and we're just going to bang it out, laptops open.
Got to have those things. I think it's important to bring an activity of some kind with you. Board games, right?
Totally.
Could be cards, could be like we're doing golf or it could be like sporting endeavors. Food experiences could be really good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not much of a huge drinker, but for people that are into wineries or bars and things like, or food experiences like could be a really, really cool thing as well. But I think injecting a bit of that into it makes a difference as well.
It totally
really,
needs to be
really
enjoyable. It's funny you bring this up because I was just thinking about this before. Like, we are totally sort of a little bit weird to the extent that I'm trying, Charlie. I'm trying.
No, I'll break it down right now. We think we're a little bit weird because the people we mostly hang out with are business owners who in themselves are weird.
Weird, yes.
Right. So how weird are we compared to our business owner friends? A little bit. When I go out with the general population and sit down for a meal, I feel like an alien. I'll go. Let's just briefly go through this. Go out for dinner, sitting down with a group of people. That's lovely people.
Yeah.
And it's like the questions that go around about like sport. I'm like, I haven't seen a game of sport in I don't know how long. So I've got no relatability. Then the next thing will come up about like weather. Because that's what people, so oddly, they default to weather. Yeah. That's the topic that comes up. Politics. Like there's this odd series of socialized normal events that I've just got no perspective on.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that. Like I had this employee and we went out for lunch. Like this was a couple of years ago, and he was like, "Politics Australia, it's horrendous." And he went into this real deep thing, and I go, "Well, like, look, I just have to be upfront with you. I actually don't know the name of the Prime Minister," and he was so offended. Like,
But that's what people, and there's nothing wrong with it if that's what you're in for.
Totally.
But distinctly, we live lives. And do you know the moments when I first notice is when I innocently say something? When I go, "Oh, I was up. I was up at 4:30 this morning doing some thinking time, reading this book, and there was this thing in it that, like, trying to share a point." And then they look at me and they're like, "You were up at 4:30
Yes.
reading a book?"
And the second question is always like, "What time do you go to bed?" It's like, I'm like 9:30.
9 o'clock.
What is wrong with you? And so, but last night, like when we were organizing dinner, like I remember when we walked into the supermarket, it was like, "You want some alcohol?" Nah. Yeah, no, let's not get some alcohol.
I didn't want to have alcohol in the experience of this weekend because I thought it would cloud thinking.
But it's totally, because I'm like, I don't want to then feel like I have to finish a bottle and do like all these things. I'm like, nah, man, just give me some good soda water.
That's what people decide, though. I
Totally.
will say I have come across some business owners where, and I don't want to like encourage this, but them having a couple of beers and a good talk with friends is how they enhance this experience. That's their process.
I completely concur, and I know a lot of business owners who have created a lot of deals through bars and drinking a lot. And I'm like, but the reason I bring it up is it's horses for courses where you get to approach the weekend the way that you want to approach the weekend. I think the key message though is it's not to replace extreme fun. Like, it will be enjoyable whether you go to concerts, bars, or out playing golf or something like that, but you still need to appreciate just the natural process of this thing happening. Like you and I making sure we're moving our body, we're making sure that we're in a state where we do want to be creative, we do want to try and solve some things, as opposed to, all right, Charlie, let's go and let our hair down and drink tinnies.
Escapism.
Totally.
Escapism is the other area. And I think that's a very, very different lineation. If you're going away to just get lit, or play video games nonstop because you're not enjoying your life, like that's a completely different sphere than productively using weekends away to create these types of things.
Completely.
All right, so we're talking about the like lead up, injecting some fun, being prepared to like get the most out of it. When we're on these weekends away, how do you approach it?
Could I just say like what happened in the car on the way here?
I don't know what you're going to share, but why not?
So here's the frame up. So we're leaving your house, Charlie, and we start heading down the road. And I'm like, look, I've just got to call the buyer's agent to put an offer in on this place, this new investment property. And you're like, yeah, man, at all. Like we were talking about like the place where it's at, like the look of the property and stuff, like 5 minutes into the drive. And then it's like, cool. All right, all good. So like 10 minutes in after you and I have had a chat, I'm like, cool, I'm just going to call the buyer's agent. Yeah, cool. Put down an offer now. No, put an extra $5,000 down. Yeah, cool, no worries at all. And then...
hold on. If you're in a hot area, yes, you should overbid by $5,000 to secure the property. But passing on from that, continue on.
So then we were like 20 minutes in to about an hour and a bit trip. The conversation went to, do you want to start your list?
Because I was excited. I want to start the list.
So then it's like, I'm like, well, and so then I'm like looking at my list. I'm like, no, I don't want to do such a good topic. Like you got to respect it more than a car trip. And so anyway, we dove into a topic and we actually like solved one thing before we actually got here.
I think the drive is an important part of it.
It's the journey.
Or the flight.
Totally.
So the Green Ninja book was for the plane.
Amazing.
Right? And like even in our experience of the drive, which this would be hard to do on your own unless you do like voice notes.
Yeah.
But the experience of like starting the percolation of these ideas, starting the discussions.
Yeah.
And I must say, what a powerful way for us to be starting that weekend where you're literally negotiating on a property. And I'll share a little internal thought on that. When we got in the car, right, and we're driving there and you're like literally on the phone to the buyer's agent, the thing that hit me is like, this is your life now.
Yeah.
Like when you got started in business and you had nothing, you had dreams of getting to this point.
That's fair. Totally.
And I'm sitting there and going, I can't believe, like, I'm literally about to go away on this weekend. We're negotiating a property on the way. We're about to share these big ideas and thoughts. We've just seen some really great success in business, and like we just got our numbers for January literally that morning. which were
Made it extra special.
made it extra special, which I'll say record month for
Mhm.
us. It was actually a record since we've been working together. It was actually a record for me overall, I believe.
Ditto. Full
So
stop.
it was a pretty crazy result in that world as well. And I was like, man, I was like overcome with like the mixture of excitement and gratitude all at once.
It was like this perfect storm to the getaway. So coming back to the question of like, well, how does it all sort of operate? So like to tee up, the transport is like where it starts. Like it starts before the transport. And funnily enough, even sort of leading up to that, just the no pressure. It's like, cool, like we'll just get away whenever we get away. We podcasted in the morning. We recorded a podcast.
Of course we do. That's not like us.
And then it's like, cool, like let's just get away. Let's have good lunch, get away, and then just get there whenever we want to get there. And we'll just continue doing it.
Create that low stress environment.
Totally. And
now,
so
before you go on though, I feel like we should check our iPads.
All right, let's
so
double check.
I'm going to keep this in the recording. So let's just make sure we are recording the video still.
All right. Yes, I still got recording.
Yeah, I'm still recording too.
Whee.
The system's working.
Whee.
Sorry, guys, we were giving this a test run on here. I was like, cool, what if it's not going?
You know what? I had that thought like 10 minutes in. I'm like, did I check that the timer on the camera was going
Runs out of storage.
I'm like, oh my
All
God.
right, but anyway, jumping back into this one. So the trip itself, the transport, the journey.
Is part of it. Like the
100%
lead up to
agree.
it, the transport itself. Like, so if you're catching a flight and imagine it leaves at like 1 p.m., wipe the whole day out. Just like wake up, whatever time you wake, and just cruise. Like maybe go out for breakfast, like just cruise and do whatever you.
Set the tone.
Literally, the intention of the whole weekend should start like that day. And it's just, and our day when we started, it was that exact approach. So then that's how you started with the intention. Then the transport's included in the weekend. And then you kind of get there and it kind of starts off from there. But the key point that I'll probably say is like, it shouldn't feel completely forced. Like we had conversations talking about random ass shit, random ass thoughts that weren't on my list. And I suspect they weren't on your list. It was just organic of going like, how do you just settle in? Like starting this podcast of saying, welcome to business and investing, looking at you in your eyes was like the most crazy feeling.
I feel like we found our flow though.
But totally. And now we've just found our flow. Like it's just two guys talking at a table at each other. But that's where you need to get to. And if you try and sort of over-engineer it and just change it where it's not that organic, what happens is that you just don't get into that flow state, right? You just don't progress into it. And then obviously we got here, we ate dinner, and it was just very organic. We were talking.
I think you over.
ate an amazing.
I cooked you a spread and a half last
incredible.
night.
It was
But anyway,
I was just
continue.
trying to downplay it, Charlie, because I want you to cook something good tonight. I'm worried if I say it's so good, you won't do it. But then during that, like there's organic conversations that are happening. Like we got no music on, there's no TV playing in the background, there's no sort of kids running around. There's like, it's just organic free flow. If we want silence, it's just silence.
The
Like,
space.
there is just, it just is. And then went to bed, and we're very fortunate. Like our clocks are very similar. Like you'll go to bed at 9, I'll go to bed at like roughly 9:15. You'll get up at 20 to 5-ish. I'll wake up just before 5-ish. Like it's pretty darn in sync. And then it's like, you do your morning. Like we didn't even talk. It was like, oh, morning. But it was like, that was it. Until we started like kettlebell swings, and I tried to out kettlebell swing you. And that's kind of when it was just this organic approach.
Yeah. So when we're on these weekends away, that morning block is actually when I'm like doing the journaling and putting these ideas down. So like things tend to percolate across the day. And don't get me wrong, I may still write things down, but that morning block of alone time, even though we're here together, is the opportunity for digestion that I think is really critical. And I do use the Keith Cunningham thinking time approach in that. I don't want to lose that. It's just been such a powerful thing for me.
It is a game changer, hands down. And then the key, like progressing. So obviously we talked about transport, the day, the setup, like the nights, and then obviously into the mornings. Just make it organic. Like if someone's obviously respect each other. Like if I go to bed at 2 a.m. and you go to bed at 9, and I wake up at midday and you wake up at like 5, obviously you want to try and find some kind of equilibrium, right? Like
you would want to check that in the people you go with. Right?
Totally, because it's like, well, what's going to happen here? Like you're only going to have a couple of hours together.
I'm going to flag it now. If we do settle on this idea of doing weekends away
and inviting other people,
I'm either going to book like caravan parks with like cabins, so everyone can have their own cabin and run their own routine, Or I'm going to be straight up. This is the clock where we're all working on in this house.
And everyone's in bed like, no, I just
You can stay up, but if you fucking with other people's sleep or doing things,
get out.
yeah, not
So,
invited.
I
You
could
play
just-
ball.
Just imagine 10 kettlebells prepped at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's just going to become a boot camp.
There are people listening to this that are like, I'm so in. I want in. That's me. And then there's others that are like, this
Sounds like hell.
disturbing.
It sounds like hell. You guys are suffers with pain. But then, so then we woke up, we did our own sort of thing. Like, we were literally sitting across from each other where we could have just had a fantastic conversation. It was like almost 2 hours of nothing. And then, we went and did our exercise, got ready. And then it was so organic and natural of just going like, hey, let's start prepping. Let's start like talking about this stuff. We grabbed coffees and then it was just natural. And then that's how it's just going to be for the rest of the day. We're going to have golf at some time. We could do it earlier in the day. We could do it later in the day. We could do it for 2 hours, 6 hours. It just doesn't matter. It just, whenever that happens, it happens.
That fluidity, I think, is so critical across the weekends as well.
And adaptability, where it's just like, it just doesn't matter. Like, we will both go, we just need to stop. Let's go do something else. The other thing that you and I will do, we'll easily walk 10,000 steps a day. Hands down.
So I literally have this in my notes, is that I have found the idea of like, if you sit and write and try and think, the things that come out of you will be different than if you walk and think in there. And I think the combination of both is the optimum result.
And incorporate it into the weekends. Like, and don't try and just do like a massive bushwalk and smash out all 10,000. Like, we'll walk to the cafe, and then we'll break it up, and then we'll come back, and then we'll walk again, and we'll go somewhere else, and we'll break it up, and then we'll walk again. Like, it's just, again, just super fluid in the way that it approaches.
I concur. I think that's a really interesting idea. So, huge bunch of ideas here. I'm literally checking my.
I was going to say, have I stolen any of your ideas?
I wanted to throw one more in here that I put in here, is the ability to have an honest conversation with yourself.
Ooh.
So I have found that across the journey, like, this is when I'm like in my work mode. So when I'm at home or in the office, I don't ever really check in with myself and be like, how are you really doing? Like, are you actually happy with the direction of your life? How's your health?
Yeah.
Right. Have you been pushing it too hard? Like, being introspective in that and doing a check-in with myself. It doesn't matter if I'm on my own for a weekend away with yourself or with Bianca. I find that to be an incredibly powerful thing that is it's like I'm only honest with myself when I do the weekend away.
Yeah.
When I'm in grind mode or when I'm in work mode, it's like the routine is like, of course I'm okay. I'm in routine.
Totally.
The routine is okay. What are you talking about? You couldn't possibly make changes to your health right now.
Yeah.
Where I found that to be an incredibly powerful thing that can be done in these weekend away type setups as well.
And I think that I actually really like that. Like, one of the things that I think would be helpful for other people is, and I'll riff off what you were saying, is being comfortable just walking out of a situation or walking out of a room. Like, imagine that I needed to have that time and you and I were like in the kitchen doing something. I just like walk away and just have like 30 minutes to myself, just to note that down, just to decompress myself or do something. And it's like, hey man, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? Or something like that. It's just like, it just is. And it's just natural, because I think a lot of those things will actually pop up. Like this morning when I was thinking through my thinking time, what I'd actually found was my monkey brain kicked in and I just had all of these operational things. It's like, bah, 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 bah. And I'm just like, I just got to get these down. And so all I did was I just banged them out, usually when I'm thinking about other stuff. And it was like, okay, cool, no, don't worry. It was literally 10 bullet points of just random things. And I'm like, okay, cool, you're right now, brain? Like, you back in the game now? Okay, cool, you're back in the game now. And just like progress from it. And so it's really interesting that you sort of check in on yourself and you have that introspective view. And I'm just like, there's so many ways to, if you have that, not bottle it up or not try and be in the moment, just like extract yourself out of the situation or just stop what you're doing and do something else in order to decompress and think through it.
So when I get to the end of a weekend away, these can be on the last night, or it might even be on the drive back, or it even could be the day after if I've been particularly busy. I find myself going back to the list, reorganizing it, and then turning it into actions.
Totally.
Like things I'm actually going to change or people I may contact or whatever it is. Do you do the same?
Yeah, it's funny, there's 3 questions, maybe 4 questions, like 3 that I know always have at the end of one of these things. what am I going to start doing? What am I going to stop doing? And when's the next one? And it's like literally it's at the bottom of my list right now. Like I know before we leave, I'm going to have a list of what I'm going to start doing, what I'm going to stop doing, and when's the next one. And then the other one, which is more like an introspective view of, is like, or what are the things that I haven't solved in order for me to take them and put them into like a thinking time or bring them to the next one.
I do like the idea of booking the next Airbnb while we're away.
It's like a sales call, right? Like you're on a sales call and the first thing you need to do is book in the next call before the finish of the call, or else you're not going to get it. It's like, I've got to book this in.
All right. And then is there anything else you do across these weekends?
Yeah. So the final thing is like when it finishes and I'm going back home, have you ever seen like a 3 or a 4, maybe a 5-year-old go to like a theme park or like Disneyland? And the parents are trying to take them away and go home. And this kid's like,
have I seen it? I live it, Grant.
Screaming tears. I don't want to go with you. I'm having too much fun. That's me. I'm like screaming like tears.
This is very fortunate. I've been working on how I deal with tantrums. I've been developing this skill.
In that case, when we finish up, you'll get to deal with my tantrum of going, oh, I'm having too much fun as I disappear. And that's how I finish it.
I would go as far to say that you want to leave feeling like it's almost not complete though.
Totally.
I think you can definitely stay too long. And if you've ever, I remember this experience when I was younger, like being at a nightclub and it's like, it's fun, but eventually it doesn't become fun. You definitely want to leave before you're not enjoying it because you can take it too far, right? Where it's an unproductive thing.
The second you see a plate of shots at a bar or a nightclub, you're like, I'm out. I'm done.
That is, we went to a wedding last week.
Is that
when that started happening? I was like, we're rolling.
Dude, and it doesn't even have to be your friends getting the shots. It's like the second you see any tray of shots going anywhere in that place, you're like, I'm done. This is only downhill from here.
We've covered my list pretty well here. Is there anything else you want to share on the idea of doing weekends aways or getaways, whatever way we want to frame them up here, which you think could be helpful for the audience?
I think we've covered most of the things that I really want. I think that the key points that I really wanted to sort of push through was that concept of like, this is a reflection time, not an execution time. Like there is no outcome that you're pushing for. You're not trying to drive some kind of agenda. This is a decompress and a creativity sort of approach. And then also on the other side of just like, there is just no pressure of time. There is no pressure of the outcome. It's just, to your point, it just is. And it sounds weird. It's like, well, you paid so much money for this place and you're going to do all this stuff. Like your family's still at home doing all these things.
I think we'll get 100x out of what we spend on this.
Looking at previous ones, yes. Like it's a hands down, but it's like, it just is. Just let the process flow. And especially when you've got the energy of someone else who's got the same goals or aspirations, or at least they're aligned, like it'll just come out. And so I think it's kind of the key message outside of just booking it and doing it. It's just like, prepare properly, don't have pressure to have an outcome, and do it with someone that you really want to enjoy, with people that you really want to enjoy it with, who are also trying to push and drive.
Yeah, I love that. And if I was going to bring one key point to the end of this as well, is that this is a tool for the toolbox. Like this is a powerful thing you can incorporate that might be the limiter on you right now. It's
just like thinking time. I would see it as valuable as thinking time.
Huge. All right, let's round this one up.
All right, I'm going to look at you in the eyes when I say this.
Deep into eyes.
Charlie, thank you very much for joining us. And if you are not part of the email newsletter, head over to businessinvesting.com/newsletter, put in your name and email, Charlie, and we'll notify you every single time we release one of these episodes.
Do you know what?
What?
We also have a bookkeeping business, Grant.
Oh my gosh, do you want to tell me about it?
Well, not really. You know about it. But for anyone else out there that is looking to get their bookkeeping done, or maybe they won't want to get their bookkeeping done because they heard these things.
Maybe they think that no, they do need it.
They do need it. They probably need it. I'm going to go as far to say your current bookkeeper is terrible. You should use us.
Unless you're using us now, to which your bookkeeper is amazing. Do you got a URL or something, or people just need to like carrier pigeon you to go and get it?
No, it's like kinesthetically. So they've got to think it and it will happen.
knowthescorefinance.com. Shall I got to tell you this? You know what I did yesterday was went and registered knowthescorefinance.com.au just in case.
Just in case I say it on the episode. That is great.
Like, knowing you're going to say it.
I'm totally going to do that.
So we're all good. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Business and Investing.